Hello, everyone, and welcome to
Here Goes Everything.
My name is Brianna,
And my name is Barbara.
and welcome to Episode 5 Embracing Change. Many of us fear change because we fear the unknown. Our brains are designed to find peace in knowing. When we don't know what will happen, we make up scenarios and create worry.
This is what keeps us from taking risks. The fear of failure also comes into play and causes us to fear change. If we don't know the outcome of things, we would much rather not take the risk at all. Trying something new becomes a risk that many times we are not willing to take.
The fear of change can stem from many places, such as childhood experiences, familial views, and so forth. As scary as change can be, change is beautiful.
And this is why today we will be teaching you all how to embrace change.
I love that.
I'd like to start with a story about myself. I grew up in a small town. It was what you would think about any small town. There are familiar faces everywhere. Everyone basically knows everyone. This means everyone knows everything about you and your life. There really isn't a sense of privacy. Something else that came with living in this small town is the loss of hope. Many of the people there were lost and misguided. And because there wasn't much to do, a lot of us turned to alcohol, smoking, drugs, and more. A lot of the people that I was surrounded with turned to violence, stealing, and all kinds of self-destructive behaviors. I often watched the people around me go in and out of juvenile detention. I watched as drugs and alcohol consumed their lives. Despite being very lost myself, I always tried to motivate those around me to aim towards more. The difference between them and I is that I actually believed that there could be positive change, whereas they didn't. To them, that's all they could ever achieve. Something that I've realized is that most of these people didn't dream. They had no dreams. No one ever believed in them, so they didn't believe in themselves. A lot of them had a lot of odds work against them. For this reason, a lot of them choose to stay there or have chosen to stay there for their entire lives. A lot of them are comfortable with continuing to live the same life that they have been living for the rest of their life. Now, while living in this small town, I was surrounded by a lot of people. Although most, if not all, of the relationships that I had with these people were unhealthy, I was able to take something from every single interaction that I had with them. I'm a very deep thinker, and for this reason, I've always been great at reading others. Upon reflection, I feel like one of the main reasons that many of these people chose to stay in this small town instead of expanding their horizons is because they were afraid of change. I, on the other hand, have always been a big dreamer. I have always been a risk. Oh,
Okay.
God.
I'm like, there's a lot to say, so
I
take
know,
your
I'm
time.
over here like literally losing my breath, but I have always been a risk taker. Perhaps that is the only thing that saved me from this doomed town that I grew into. When I graduated high school, I knew there was absolutely nothing left for me there. So I left. And I made it my priority to turn my life around. And I did. I embraced change.
Wow.
It took experiencing a lot of pain and failure to come to this decision. I had many opportunities to leave and to never turn back. In fact, I did leave several times, but I always went back. I felt tied to the people there. I felt tied to that town. Despite it being a very unhealthy environment full of unhealthy individuals, there was comfort in being in the one place that I was familiar with. So I went back. It took falling down and having no one to pick me up a million times for me to realize that I deserved better and that I could do better. I wanted more. I didn't know my worth then, and perhaps I still didn't know when I graduated high school, but I knew that I wanted more. And so that's what I went looking for when I moved from that town. I knew that I was tired of feeling hopeless and alone, and my life essentially started when I moved away and left everything and everyone behind. This left me with no one, but I was adamant about changing my entire life and making it better.
I'm speechless. You always leave me speechless.
I always
I'm
leave
like,
you
wow.
speechless.
But thank you for sharing your story with us. I am honestly so proud of you for choosing courage and learning how to truly embrace change. Change is rooted in growth and, change is, painful. Change does not come from comfort. And one thing that we shouldn't do is don't fear change, fear comfort. Do you get me?
I do.
But there are so many benefits that come with change, such as personal growth, improvement, strength, progress, new opportunities, and new beginnings. Change is necessary for growth. I am also out of breath, and I just started talking. But yes, guys, change is necessary for growth. It allows us to move forward in life and experience new and exciting things. So, what can we do to embrace change? The number one step is to take risks. Remind yourself that although change is not easy, life is way too short to stay stuck in your comfort zone. If you have a big dream in mind, take that leap. Have a little courage and be patient with yourself.
First of all, I'd like to say that I'm thankful for you talking quite a bit there. That way, I'm able to reset and catch my breath before I start talking a lot again.
I know, because sometimes I feel like I say a little bit, and then you're like back into saying a lot. You're like, I'm like and then vice versa. Sometimes I'm running out of breath, and I'm trying to keep up. But
exactly. And well, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Of course.
I'd like to add that what has helped me with change is weighing out the options. After I graduated high school, I had two options. I had the option to stay in this small town where I was surrounded by a lot of negative influences, or I had the option to move out of that town and, yes, of course, leaving everything and everyone behind, but also allowing myself to move forward in life. It's really crazy to think about how it was a conscious decision that was made from one moment to another. I'm actually really proud of myself for this. At this point in my life, there was absolutely nothing holding me back.
And I'm also proud of you.
I
can only imagine how hard it must have been just having to make that decision for yourself. But if you take a moment to really think about it, change is what allowed you to become the person you are today. The reason a lot of people don't become the person they want to be is simply because they're attached to who they've been. You honestly hear it all the time. Just yesterday, my mom literally told me, I've been this way my whole life and nothing can change that. However, we all hold the ability to change. You knew that staying in a place that no longer served you any good was not allowing you to grow. So you did what was best for you, and look how far you've come.
Oh, thank you so much.
Of course. I'm honestly, again, so proud of you. Catching my breath.
Take your time. Take your time. You guys can go drink some water and then...
Oh, please. Yes, but honestly, you've been through so much, and I know your entire life story. It's honestly straight out of a movie. And if I were to tell our listeners the things that you face, I can guarantee you they wouldn't believe me. They'd think that I'm, like, making everything up.
Nope. Yeah.
Your life is crazy.
Yes, and stay tuned because I plan on writing a book about it.
Yes, honestly, she's been working on it for a while, and it's great. I can't wait, honestly. But
It's a lot.
It
So it'll
is.
probably take me a couple of years.
It is a lot, but we'll see.
Yes, and now going back to what you were saying, because I was able to get to where I am now, despite going through a lot of excruciating experiences, I know that change is possible for everyone,
It is.
but you have to work for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it will never be easy. You have to want change in order to be able to create it for yourself. You have to believe it. You have to believe in yourself. I understand that this can be hard. I didn't believe that my life could ever get better. But I made it happen. I made it better.
Exactly.
I had to work towards that. And yeah, it started with me believing that it could happen in the first place. One of my favorite sayings is, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I was tired of being unhappy. I was tired of feeling hopeless. I was tired of getting hurt. I was tired of hurting myself. So I did something different. I chose me. I moved away and I let go of all of the people that I knew did not have my best interests in mind.
Yeah. I'm like over here snapping my fingers. Like,
I
yeah,
know,
baby,
right?
you go.
I can't say that I was scared because there is nothing scarier than losing yourself and facing darkness alone. It was a lonely journey, but I learned to enjoy my own company after being in solitude for so long. I learned that misery loves company, and this is why I stayed trapped in these unhealthy relationships. It didn't matter if they were platonic or romantic. I still stayed in all of these unhealthy relationships. Because again, misery loves company. And at some point I had to break that. We have to know that it is far better to be alone than to be surrounded by many people, but people that don't care about you.
Exactly. It's kind of crazy because you and I experienced a lot of similar things. However, you chose change despite knowing that you had to start all over again. But you did it because you feared losing yourself. And I, on the other hand, allowed the fear of change to keep me trapped in the same place. I stayed in an environment that was so unhealthy for me for several years, despite knowing that it was not good for me. You left your hometown because you feared losing yourself, whereas I stayed in my hometown out of fear and lost myself entirely in the process. Sometimes I do wonder where I would have been had I not feared change, but I did learn a lot and eventually chose change. It took me a while, but I'm finally here. As Barbara and I mentioned in our first episode, we moved to Colorado from California in December. And it was so hard for me because I had never been away from my family. I decided change would be the best decision for myself at that moment because I had been dealing with a lot of familial issues, and I knew I needed change in order to just heal and find myself again. As hard as it was in the beginning, I'm honestly so glad I chose change.
Change allowed us both new beginnings. I think that is the greatest takeaway from it. New beginnings allow room for more opportunities. I feel like we not only fear change, but we fear losing people when we choose change over comfort. When we don't have the support of our loved ones, it makes embracing change that much more difficult.
Yes. So with that being said, let's go back to teaching our listeners how to embrace change. I previously stated that the number one step is to take risks. Remind yourself that although change is not easy, life is way too short to stay stuck in your comfort zone. Another way to embrace change is to prepare for it. For example, start by implementing small changes that are not too uncomfortable. Let's say you want to move across the state like we did. First, we moved out into our own apartment in California where I was slowly able to learn how to be away from my family. Then we saved up money and we came to Colorado for about a month just to kind of get an idea of what it would be like and see if we liked it. I want to say about 2 months later, we decided to take that big leap and moved out of state. Easing our way into it made it so much more manageable, at least in my opinion. What do you think, hon?
Oh my gosh, yes. I hadn't viewed it from that perspective. But I feel like it's definitely such great advice.
Thank you.
Taking baby steps can definitely make it easier to embrace change. It can be scary to take big risks. So starting small is always a great way to start getting comfortable with change. Dip your toes in the water. Test out the waters.
Exactly. Another way to embrace change is to expect
Remix.
expect bumps along the road. Honestly, simply knowing that change is hard will allow it to be so much easier to just deal with the discomfort that comes with it. Prepare yourself by acknowledging. What is with me today?
Acknowledging.
Thank you. Prepare yourself by acknowledging that there will be a lot of emotions along the way.
Take a little 5-minute break. 5 seconds. I mean, it happens. It happens.
I'm coming back. I got it. Allow yourself to just take the time to feel your emotions and understand that all of these emotions are temporary. It can actually take anywhere from 18 to 254 days for a person to adapt to change. So take your time with it.
I love that you pointed that out. With change comes adjusting to it. So definitely be prepared for it. Don't feel discouraged when you start experiencing a roller coaster of emotions because of it. That is normal. We'd be lying to you if we were to tell you that embracing change is easy and that it doesn't cause a reaction of emotions. When we moved to Colorado, it took us several months to adjust. In fact, I'd say that we are still adjusting. I'd say that I felt very depressed for an entire month or so. It wasn't a good feeling at all. Had I been someone else, there could have been the possibility of immediately moving back into my old situation because of that discomfort. But I know that at this point in my life, California isn't going to bring me what I need. It's hard to say this knowing San Diego has my heart. It is where I would feel the most comfortable. Of course, it is what I am familiar with, so that's a big part of it. It is also a lot more diverse and inclusive, but it isn't to say that it is entirely the best place for me right now. I feel like if I would have stayed there, there would have been a lot of things holding me back from long-term success and fulfillment. It can be hard to adjust to change, but don't allow that to be the reason that you go running back to something that is not in your best interests. I feel like this is the reason we run back to unhealthy relationships, any kind of relationships. This is the reason some people choose to move back in with their parents. Shortly before we moved to Colorado, that could have actually been another option for me. My father actually told me that he'd have his current tenant move out just so that I could move in. It's almost like a very small part of me wanted to consider it. But I immediately reflected on what moving in would look like. Moving in would mean that I would be sacrificing my self-worth. It meant that I would be compromising my mental health. It could have provided us some financial stability, but it really wasn't worth it to me. Whew.
Take a breather. That was a lot.
Yeah.
We have a lot to say. I feel like we just have a lot to say in general, whether it's this episode
I
or
talk
any
a
episode.
lot.
And it's funny because I always say I talk a lot, but when it comes to very important matters, I feel like you talk a lot.
Yes.
Me, I'm just a blabbermouth.
Now, I feel like part of me wanted to settle with moving back in with my father because Brianna and I really wanted to move out of her parents' house. And well, it meant moving back to San Diego, which is also great. But I don't think we've really shared this, but we had our own apartment for a couple of months. We initially leased it with 2 other individuals, but unfortunately, things took a very dark turn, and at some point, we were forced to break the lease early and had no other choice but to move back in with her parents. This was not at all healthy for us. It was not healthy for me. After experiencing a lot of hurtful situations and being surrounded by people that don't know how to be respectful towards others, we made several attempts to find an apartment or a studio for just the 2 of us. There was nothing within our budget. Everything was strikingly expensive. And I feel like this is the main reason I was almost willing to consider moving back in with my father when he asked. It was a millisecond kind of thought that very quickly evaporated. I was like, there is no way that I am moving back into that house.
I remember that too. You're like, you kind of thought about it and you're like, nope, not happening.
I'm like, why am I even thinking about it or considering it? I feel like for anyone, that would have been an easy and comfortable decision to follow through with, given the circumstances. But I moved out of that house for a reason. It was a very unhealthy environment for me. The sole purpose for moving out of Brianna's parents' house was for us to have a safe place for ourselves. And moving back in with my father would have not been any better. And now, here we are. I'll admit it's not exactly the ideal situation. I feel like I would still very much like to be in San Diego, and I know Brianna would love that too.
Oh, I would love that, yes.
But if I were to view it from a different perspective, in many ways, I think this is the best place for us right now.
It is.
That can always change, but for now, we are just making the best out of it. There is no doubt in my mind that we are in a much better place because of it. I'm not convinced we could have started our podcast had we stayed in California. I'm not convinced that we would have gotten this far in our journey with our mental health.
I completely agree. Colorado is definitely the place for us to be right now, and being here has definitely allowed the both of us to just focus on our mental and physical health. Sure, moving back in with my parents or your dad would have been the easier option. However, I'm really glad we took the risk and moved out of state. Like Barbara stated earlier, we both dealt with depression when we first moved here. I was actually diagnosed with an adjustment disorder, so it was pretty hard on the both of us, but we're finally adjusting to this move and embracing what Colorado has to offer. I feel like ever since our move, we really look forward to visiting San Diego now. When we lived in California, there were so many things that we took for granted, and now we can go back and truly enjoy all of it. We actually have a trip coming up next month in May, and so we're so excited. I can't wait.
Yes, we miss California food.
Yes, not just that. I told Barbara, I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss the sun. I miss the beach. I'm like, you guys can find me sunbathing at the beach with the drink in my hand. I'm just kidding.
It's so funny because when I was in San Diego, I always said, oh, I'm not really like a beach kind of person. But since we've moved to Colorado, I'm like, I'm really looking forward to,
Yes,
to going to
honestly,
the beach.
we actually thought, okay, because we have a lot of lakes surrounding us. There's honestly one like 3 to 5 minutes away from us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was last month, I told Barbara, oh, let's go to the lake. And so we went to the lake and it was frozen. And so here I am thinking like, oh my gosh, like it's a pretty like sunny, nice day. Like it's going to be nice. Let's go to the lake. I didn't want to go swimming or anything, but I just kind of wanted, when you go to the beach.
I think Lauren wanted to go swimming.
My niece had came to visit us, and this girl, she's literally like walking on the ice, like on the lake, and then starts jumping on it. And I'm like, you're going to fall through. And she's like, it's fine. It's not deep here. So that's why Barbara said.
Keep in mind that you don't want to take those kind of risks.
Yeah, don't do that.
Anyway.
But I cannot wait to be in San Diego, enjoying some sunshine and the beach.
Yes.
Which, again, we just took for granted when we were there.
So on that note, going back to being able to enjoy San Diego more, being able to embrace it more, the change that we follow through with. I want everyone to know that embracing change doesn't mean that you have to entirely let go of everything. It doesn't mean that it has to be a permanent decision. I'm completely aware of the fact that things fluctuate a lot. They change. They're always evolving. What may be serving you now may not serve you then, and vice versa. I feel like sometimes we are afraid of change because we are afraid that once we cross that line, we won't be able to ever go back from it. And that simply isn't true. In our case, we moved to Colorado because it will...
You're becoming a rapper now, too?
Oh, whoa, I think so. We moved to Colorado because it was what was best for the time being. But it doesn't mean that we can't ever choose to move back if we feel that it is the best decision for us in the future. If you have someone that is not respecting you or taking your feelings into consideration, and you feel that it is time to set a boundary by not speaking to them for a while, don't feel like it has to be a permanent decision. People can change too. Situations can change. And if that person makes the changes that are necessary for you to maintain a healthy relationship.
And vice versa, because it can also be you needing to make changes.
Right. We have to keep that in mind. There's always room for growth. But just know that you can always make the choice to reconcile with that person. It's all about finding balance. It's not to say that you can't make more permanent decisions when there is something or someone that is simply not suiting you at all. But do what is best for you. Don't be afraid to make changes that are necessary in your life out of fear.
Exactly. I like how you said that you don't have to entirely let go of everything. Life doesn't have to be so black and white. Like Barbara mentioned, it's all about balance. I want to go back and touch base on one more important factor that allows you to embrace change, and that is celebrating your milestones. Change is difficult, so give yourself permission to celebrate your ability to just go through it. Reward yourself for making tough changes and celebrate milestones along the way. Remember to celebrate the small steps after making progress when breaking a bad habit, setting boundaries, or even taking a step closer to your goals. It's good to cherish these small moments because these small moments are what essentially help us get to the end goal and truly embrace change. So with that being said,
I really love that.
thank you.
I feel like it's hard to acknowledge our progress. It's hard to, give ourselves credit for it.
Especially when you kind of have setbacks,
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to kind of
look at all of the, like,
the baby steps that you took. And even if you kind of had a little setback, it's like you're still trying, and that matters. It matters so much. And so I really feel like it's important to celebrate your little milestones.
Agreed.
So with that being said, we really hope that we were able to get through to you guys and kind of, with our own stories, show you guys what embracing change can do to you and
What it looks like, what it takes.
I'm honestly really, really, really glad that I chose change despite being afraid of what it may bring. I always lived with the fear that things wouldn't work out for me. And for some reason, some way, somehow, things have always kind of came together.
Mm-hmm. Can I just say that by embracing change, you were able to leave a very unhealthy and abusive relationship.
Yes.
And you were not only able to find your way back to me, but...
Oh, please.
You were
very convenient.
You were also able to find a way back to yourself, and you were able to, embrace the best parts of yourself again.
I feel like, again, because I had been so used to being in my comfort zone, I was so afraid of letting certain people go.
Right.
And once I was able to do that, I realized that I had lost myself entirely. And so change allowed me to find myself again. It allowed me to find peace within myself and happiness.
I love that.
So I really hope
But
that...
you forgot one thing.
And it led me back to you.
I'm totally kidding. I love you.
I love you too. But honestly, I really do hope that everyone learns at one point or another to just embrace change and not allow fear to stop you from progressing.
You can do it. You just, again, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that it's possible, and then go ahead and rewrite your story.
You got this.
Yes.
We'll be supporting you at the end zones.
Yes.
And even along the sidelines.
Exactly.
So with that being said, get out there, and whatever it is that you know needs to be taken care of, go take care of it.
Create that change for yourself. And again, thank you for listening to this episode. Thank you for listening to our little
hiccups along the way, our little mini rap sessions.
Yes.
And actually, today I just realized I forgot to tell everyone because today's Thursday and we didn't post on Tuesday. So we were, we had to take care of some things. And today's Thursday, April 14th. We didn't post on Tuesday, but we will still continue to post Sundays and Tuesdays.
Correct.
Today was the only exception.
Yes, we, like Brianna said, we had some things to take care of, and we couldn't make the time to work on the podcast. But
and it's crazy because at first we were kind of like stressing out about it.
We were.
And I told Barbara, I was like, honey, it's okay. We need to prioritize our mental health. We need to tell ourselves that we don't have to feel so rushed and kind of overwhelmed because we have like a deadline.
Right.
I'm like, if we need to take a day or two to get whatever we need to get situated and then do it, like that's okay. And so
that made me feel a lot better.
And so here we are now, we're doing it. And I'm so glad that we took those 2 days to kind of get everything taken care of that we had to take care of. Because now it's like we can enjoy our podcast and we can put our heart into it instead of just kind of rushing through it and not really being present. So.
Exactly. And I definitely feel like my mind was more in it. My heart was more in it. And it was kind of like a hard thing to talk about. I don't know. I felt myself getting a little overwhelmed with emotions as I was talking earlier. But I feel like had we done it 2 days ago, I don't think
you just would have rushed through it, or
I would have rushed through it, or
mentioned
just
it. Sorry,
it would have been harder for me to speak about.
Yeah.
So I feel like even though I was feeling a lot throughout all of this, I was able to keep myself more grounded this time around. So
I'm proud of us.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Alrighty, guys. We'll see you guys on Sunday. Thank you for listening.
Goodbye. Have a great
Bye.
day.
Have a lovely day.